Book Nibbles. Big Ideas, Small Bites. Dr. Nicole LePera's How to Do the Work is part memoir, part psychology manual, and part guide to healing. Known widely as the holistic psychologist, LePera takes her readers on a journey that is both deeply personal and broadly instructive, showing how patterns formed in childhood can unconsciously dictate adult life, and how conscious, deliberate work can transform pain into empowerment. The book speaks to those who feel stuck, repeating the same unhealthy relationships, sabotaging themselves, or struggling with anxiety, depression, and disconnection. LePera's central message is that awareness, paired with consistent action, allows us to step out of old cycles and begin to create a self that is authentic, whole, and free. She begins with her own story. Trained in traditional psychology, LePera worked with clients using mainstream tools of therapy. Yet she often found herself frustrated. Sessions felt repetitive, breakthroughs were rare, and her own life was not immune to the very struggles she helped others address. She battled anxiety, unhealthy coping mechanisms, and a sense of disconnection. She wanted to understand why, despite all her education and tools, she and her clients were still stuck in old loops. This dissatisfaction became the seed of her holistic approach. Instead of seeing mental health as separate from physical health, spiritual growth, or environment, she began to see the human being as a whole system where mind, body, and spirit interact. Healing, she realized, must include all dimensions of life, not just talk therapy. One of the foundational ideas in the book is the concept of the childhood self that remains within us. From a young age, our nervous systems are wired by the environment in which we are raised. If a child grows up in a home where love is inconsistent, where anger rules the atmosphere, or where emotional needs are dismissed, the child learns patterns of survival, perhaps people-pleasing, perhaps shutting down emotionally, perhaps becoming hypervigilant to the moods of others. These adaptations help the child survive, but when carried into adulthood, they become limiting. For example, the people-pleaser who survived by earning approval may become the adult who cannot say no, who is crushed under the weight of others' expectations. LePera insists that until we recognize these unconscious patterns, they will continue to rule our lives. She provides clear, accessible examples. Imagine someone who constantly finds themselves in relationships with emotionally unavailable partners. Consciously, they want intimacy and connection, but unconsciously, they are repeating the pattern of a childhood in which love was absent or conditional. The nervous system feels at home in what is familiar, even if that familiarity is painful. So the adult keeps choosing partners who replicate the original wound, convinced each time that this one will be different. The work then is to break that unconscious pattern, not by willpower alone, but by rewiring the nervous system and building new habits of thought, emotion, and behavior. LePera introduces the concept of self-betrayal, the subtle ways we abandon our authentic needs to fit the mold created by childhood conditioning. Maybe it is the person who stays silent instead of voicing disagreement, or the employee who overworks because rest once brought punishment, or the adult who never feels good enough because as a child they were only praised for achievement. These betrayals accumulate, leaving us with a sense of emptiness and disconnection from ourselves. Healing begins when we start noticing the moments of self-betrayal and choose, instead, to honor what we truly feel and need. One of the most important tools she offers is cultivating conscious awareness. For LePera, this is the daily practice of stepping out of autopilot, the mode in which our nervous system runs old patterns, and becoming aware of the present moment. She emphasizes that awareness is not judgment, it is curiosity. For example, instead of berating yourself for snapping at your partner, you pause and notice, I felt my chest tighten, I felt threatened, and my body reacted. This pause creates space. It interrupts the automatic loop and allows a different choice. Awareness, she argues, is the foundation of all change. Without it, we are prisoners of habit. With it, we begin to carve new neural pathways. LePera dives into the science behind this. The brain, she explains, is plastic. It is capable of rewiring itself. Every repeated thought or action strengthens a neural pathway, making it easier to repeat in the future. This is why unhealthy patterns feel so automatic. They are literally carved into the brain. But by bringing awareness and making new choices, even small ones, we begin to weaken the old pathways and strengthen new ones. Over time, these choices accumulate into transformation. Healing is not a single epiphany, but thousands of tiny, conscious shifts. Another key theme is the role of trauma. LePera broadens the definition beyond catastrophic events, arguing that trauma includes little t experiences of neglect, invalidation, or chronic stress. For example, a child who is never hugged when upset learns that emotions are unsafe. That child becomes an adult who suppresses feelings, perhaps developing anxiety or physical symptoms. Trauma, she insists, lives in the body. It is not just a memory but a physiological imprint. Healing requires not only talking about it, but engaging the body. Practices like breathwork, grounding, and mindful movement help calm the nervous system and release stuck energy. She shares her own experiences with practices that helped her regulate her nervous system. For instance, daily breathwork exercises allowed her to notice how often she was in fight or flight mode, even during ordinary moments. By slowing and deepening her breath, she taught her body to shift into a state of safety, which made it easier to respond to life consciously rather than reactively. She encourages readers to experiment with these tools, emphasizing that healing is not one size fits all. It is about finding what works for your unique system. LePera also emphasizes the importance of reparenting, the process of giving yourself, as an adult, the care and support you did not receive as a child. This might mean speaking to yourself with compassion instead of criticism, setting boundaries to protect your energy, or allowing yourself rest without guilt. Reparenting is about becoming the reliable, loving caregiver to yourself that you once needed. She provides examples. If as a child you were told to stop crying, as an adult you might comfort your inner child by saying, "It's okay to feel sad. I'm here for you." Over time, this builds a sense of safety and self-trust. Boundaries are another crucial theme. In communities and families where self-sacrifice was glorified, many people learn to say yes when they mean no, to absorb others' pain, or to ignore their own limits. LePera reframes boundaries not as selfish walls but as essential acts of self-respect. She offers practical advice. Start small, perhaps by saying no to something minor, and tolerate the discomfort that follows. Expect pushback. People accustomed to your lack of boundaries may resist. But hold steady. Each boundary you set reinforces the message to your nervous system that your needs matter, and this, too, is reparenting. LePera also addresses the issue of emotional addiction. Our bodies can become chemically addicted to familiar emotional states, whether anger, anxiety, or shame. For instance, someone raised in chaos may unconsciously seek out drama in adulthood, because calm feels unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Recognizing these emotional addictions is part of the work. Healing involves learning to sit with discomfort when peace arrives, to resist the pullback into chaos, and to retrain the body to feel safe in states it once rejected. A particularly striking part of the book is her exploration of self-sabotage. Many of us set goals, exercise, healthier relationships, creative projects, only to undermine ourselves. LePera explains that this is not evidence of weakness, but of unresolved wounds. The inner child who fears rejection may sabotage closeness, or the adult who feels unworthy may sabotage success. Instead of harsh self-criticism, she urges compassion and curiosity. What part of me is afraid of this change? By identifying the underlying wound, we can reassure the inner child and move forward with more stability. LePera weaves throughout the memoir pieces of her own journey. She speaks of recognizing her people-pleasing patterns, of realizing how much her body lived in constant tension, and of the fear she felt in setting her first boundaries. These personal stories ground the book, making it not just theoretical but lived. She does not present herself as someone who has arrived, but as someone continuously practicing the work, reminding readers that healing is ongoing. Community is another important thread. Healing, she argues, cannot happen in isolation. We are wired for connection, and safe, supportive relationships are essential for growth. She acknowledges, however, that many people begin the journey surrounded by unsupportive or toxic relationships. Part of the work, then, is both finding healthier communities and learning to show up differently in the ones we already have. She encourages readers to seek people who honor their boundaries, who listen without judgment, and who encourage authenticity. LePera also spends time on the power of daily practices. Healing is not about grand gestures, but about consistent habits that rewire the brain and nervous system. She advocates for journaling, meditation, mindful movement, breathwork, and conscious self-reflection. These practices, she notes, are like brushing your teeth. They maintain hygiene, not just fix crises. Over time, they shift the baseline of how you experience life. She urges readers to start small, perhaps just a few minutes a day, and build gradually, focusing on consistency rather than perfection. Another theme is accountability. Healing requires taking responsibility for your choices, not as blame but as empowerment. Many of us, LePera notes, fall into cycles of victimhood, blaming our parents, partners, or circumstances. While acknowledging harm is crucial, staying in blame keeps us powerless. By claiming responsibility, we reclaim agency. We cannot change the past, but we can choose how we respond now. She frames this not as minimizing trauma, but as refusing to let trauma define the rest of our lives. LePera's concept of creating yourself comes into play here. Healing is not just about undoing the past, but about actively building a future aligned with your values and desires. She encourages readers to dream of what they truly want, not what they were told they should want, but what resonates authentically. Then, step by step, to align daily actions with that vision. It might mean pursuing a creative passion, cultivating healthier relationships, or simply allowing joy. The point is that healing opens space for creation. Throughout, she emphasizes patience and self-compassion. The work is hard, messy, and non-linear. There will be setbacks, old patterns resurfacing, moments of despair. But each effort matters. Each moment of awareness, each boundary set, each compassionate word to oneself is a victory. She reminds readers to measure progress not by perfection but by noticing shifts, greater calm, deeper self-trust, more authentic choices. By the end of the book, the message is clear: healing is possible for everyone, no matter their past. It requires courage, consistency, and willingness to face discomfort, but the reward is profound. It is not just the absence of pain but the presence of vitality, connection, and authenticity. LePera's journey from frustrated therapist to holistic guide underscores the universality of the struggle and the hope of transformation. How to do the work is both map and mirror. It maps the terrain of trauma, patterns, and healing, offering tools and practices. And it mirrors the reader's own life, inviting reflection and recognition. In telling her story and sharing her framework, LePera offers not quick fixes but a lifelong practice, the practice of doing the work, one conscious choice at a time. It is a call to wake up from autopilot, to honor the inner child, to reclaim the body, and to build a self rooted in truth rather than fear. It is both deeply personal and universally relevant, a book that meets readers wherever they are and invites them into the possibility of freedom. By the final pages, the reader feels not only informed but empowered. The work is daunting, but it is doable. And perhaps most importantly, it is worth it. And that's it. Dr. Nicole LePera's How to Do the Work. Thanks for listening to Book Nibbles. If you enjoyed this bite-sized book, don't forget to subscribe for more quick, insightful summaries. See you in the next nibble.